This is Mrs. Homel, and I want to show you how I started my research on the alternative energy hydrogen and my process for starting my reading and note taking. My process for note taking while I'm reading is text marking, and I just prefer text marking because I can underline the text evidence right there in the article and not rewrite it exactly on a note card or things like that. So you have to find your way of taking notes. Let me show you how I text mark while I'm reading informational text. So I'll be honest, when I first started reading about fuel cells and hydrogen energy, I felt lost. I had no clue what it was. I've never read about it. So this was a completely brand new topic and somewhat a little bit over my head at first. So I wanted to stick with the basics, and the basics are the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, why, and you can also search for how. So I had to keep reminding myself to stick to the basics so that I can kind of dig through the text and pull some important information out to help me learn more about this alternative energy. I also did read this article. I started and stopped. I went back and reread. I probably read it about 3 times before I really could start thinking about text marking and taking notes, because the first time I read it, I had no clue what I just read. It kind of just went in one ear and out the other, and I just was lost. So read it more than once. Let me show you a little bit about how I started taking my notes through text marking. So if I found something important, I would underline the text, and I try to be very picky with underlining. And then besides just underlining, I want to make notes in my margin about why it's underlined, so that when I go back to the underline, I know what I was thinking, why it's important. So here I have the how fuel cells are made. And as I continued on, I got to a part where I just felt really stuck. So I decided to stop my reading, and I needed help visualizing. I went to Google Images, and I did a Google image search to see what a fuel cell looked like, because I had no clue. I had never seen this before. So if you need to stop and gather some visuals, do so. If you need to stop and kind of process things, do so. And once I did that, I felt like I could go on. And you'll notice I don't have text marking every single paragraph. And that's okay, because I only want to get the most important stuff. There's a lot of information here, and I don't need it all. I just need enough to understand what it is, why it's important, and the advantages and disadvantages in comparison to using fossil fuels or other alternative energies. So here you'll see I started to find advantages, and I started to underline or bracket that part. This is where the text talks about advantages. And I also made my own list, because I want to be able to go back to that and be able to put it in my own words. What are the advantages? What is a disadvantage I found? And how does it compare to other alternative energies or fossil fuels? So when you start finding that, take notes and be able to have that noted easily. When I got down here, I found out that there were multiples or different kinds of fuel cells. So I used this page to make a list, my 1, 2, 3 types of fuel cells. And I can go back in there, and if I decide to write about that, I can. And I continued on, and here again you'll see I have the who and the why. Who would use hydrogen energy, or what would use hydrogen energy, and then why. Why is this doing what it does? And a lot of the articles I read talked about the future of this alternative energy, which I think you'll find about any alternative energy you research. So pay attention to, what the scientists are saying about the future. And here I found some possible future uses, and I'm going to use that to finish up my research project at the end. Here I am again with a negative or a disadvantage, and here's my why. Why isn't this being used? So I found the text evidence, and then I wrote that out here. Why U.S. isn't pushing towards hydrogen energy, which would be a disadvantage. So as you see, I have some text underlined. I have my thinking aside from that in the margins, but I don't have tons text marked, because text marking is not about finding every little piece of thing. Text marking is showing and mapping your learning, taking notes for yourself so that when you go back to write or talk about something, you can do it. So I'm going to show you my next couple of articles that I did as well. And maybe if you choose to do text marking, you will.